Hello Internet, it's me Josh, the Aging Gamer. So, as you can tell by my last video, I really do love me some Sega Genesis. There's a lot of awesome games on that system, but one of my favorites has to be Rocket Knight Adventures. Rocket Knight Adventures stars a badass possum named Sparkster. With his amazing rocket pack and his mighty sword, he fights his way through an evil pig army, who even have their own spaceship called the Pigstar. Yeah, really. It's all a crazy adventure to save the captured Princess Sherry. This game was developed by Nobuya Nakazato, designer of a few of the Contra titles. So while the game is fun, like those games, it can get extremely difficult. I absolutely love the game. To me, Rocket Knight Adventures is one of the most underrated games on the Sega Genesis. But with that said, if Rocket Knight Adventures is one of the most underrated, what does that make its sequel? Well, let's see. Let's see if this game is worthy of being a sequel. Let's see if it's any good. Let's see how it compares to the first game. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sparkster, Rocket Knight Adventures 2. Sparkster, Rocket Knight Adventures 2 is typically just referred to as Sparkster. However, there is another Rocket Knight Adventures game also called Sparkster, but for the Super Nintendo. Despite both of these games sharing the same title and even the box art, they're two entirely different games. Today we'll be focusing on the Sega Genesis 1, but you bet sometime in the future I'll be going over that Super Nintendo Sparkster too. So, Sparkster naturally takes place right after the events of the first game. After restoring peace to the kingdom of Zebulos, a tribe of reptiles known as the Gadol Empire, led by King Gadol, seek to control the kingdom. They've even recruited Sparkster's arch-rival, Axel Gear, to kidnap Princess Sherry's cousin, Princess Cherry. Our brave Rocket Knight Sparkster sets out once more to save the day. So let's start the game. And from the very moment you start this game, your immediate actions have very dire consequences. You'll see what seems like an opening cutscene of Sparkster finding some sword before Axel Gear comes in to ruin everything. This entire scene is skippable by pressing the start button, but wait long enough and you'll actually be able to take control of Sparkster while in his robot, the Spark Robo. Kinda like the last game where we had a Rock'em Sock'em robot battle with Axel Gear, we'll have one here too. Defend yourself and punch when there's an opening, and you can eventually defeat Axel. You can lose this battle, so if you do, I recommend resetting and starting over so you can win. And once you do win, you'll get this sword. This here is one of the keys to the seal. Throughout this game, there's 7 of those special Keys to the Seals artifacts that we'll collect. And once you collect them all, well, actually, we'll get to that surprise a little bit later. Now we see Axel Gear kidnap Cherry. You dick! And now we're in full control of Sparkster. Take this, bad guys! Ha 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 ha! Compared to the first game, the controls are very familiar, yet feel rather off. While ideas of gameplay are similar, it's actually been revamped. So, Sparkster still has a sword attack, however it's just a typical sword-swinging melee attack instead of the little beam sword from before. I kinda prefer the older sword attack personally, but there is an awesome fire sword power-up you can find in this game, so that's pretty cool. Also, Sparkster still has his signature rocket pack, of course, but instead of holding down a button to charge it up, it charges up automatically, and now you just press a button to use it. Since the rocket charges on its own, sometimes we can actually blast off several times in the same jump. That's kinda neat. You'll also notice that Sparkster has less health than before. And outside of all the game mechanic differences, Sparkster physically looks different too. If you ask me, it looks like someone was inspired by Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh, and one more change to the game is the slot machine. So throughout the levels you'll find gems. Collect 10 blue gems, or 1 red gem, and you'll get an automatic roll on the slots. You'll always get a prize. Sometimes you'll get that fire sword power up, sometimes it's more health, or more gems, or even extra lives. Don't get too excited when the slots are moving though, because there is a booby prize of a bomb. All in all, I find the slot machine gimmick pretty cool. It's not too distracting, and there's been times that I've had a health or a power-up drop to help me out when I was in a pinch. So yeah, gameplay-wise, it feels very similar, yet very different from the first game, but overall, I feel the controls work really well. Now, with that said, let's start this! So the first stage is the ancient ruins and forest level. You'll quickly run into some lizard bad guys. In terms of how they look and fight, they're almost identical to the pigs from the first game, except, you know, they're green. Once you reach the second section of this stage, there's a wall with a secret opening here that leads you to the second key artifact. Sweet! You'll notice that some of these levels are pretty big, and sometimes there's different routes you can take within them, which I guess feels kinda Sonic inspired too. We'll eventually run into a mini-boss that you have to unscrew to defeat him. We move on and we'll go into the forest area where we'll have another mini-boss, this tree dude. We'll fight our way through some lizards on carts, and we'll eventually run into our third goddamn mini-boss. Jeez! We'll then end up on a scrolling stage where the enemies drop from above. We'll finally make it to the real boss of this stage, a train with a robot arm. Keep attacking this spot to win. Now stage 2 has us in a desert. Alright, so a desert level in a 16-bit console video game. Let's go ahead and see if we can guess the tropes here. Alright, so a desert level, which means there's probably going to be a pyramid with a lot of traps. Yes! Now, a desert, so there's got to be quicksand in there somewhere too, right? Ah, that one was too easy. Let's go ahead and guess some enemies. How about sandworms? Bats? Mummies? No? No mummies? Really? Wow. There's no mummies, but there are, however, snakes with arms. Or are these lizards with no legs? Well, once we reach this part, we have to scale a pyramid. Towards the top, there's an extremely deadly but optional passage to go through that contains our third key to the seal. Overall, this stage has lots of traps and gimmicks, but I gotta say, this is probably my favorite in the game. Towards the end, we'll fight a fire guy. It's kinda weird though that this monster has a human-like face. Since we're in an anamorphic world, it feels kinda out of place, don't you think? Shortly after this fight, we'll go against a giant snake, lizard, dragon, whatever the fuck dude. Blast him when he's in front of you. When he hides in the background, try to stay airborne to avoid his attacks. In stage 3, there's a giant airship. We have to go in and out of all these tubes to try and stop these enemies from destroying these propellers. It takes some time, but keep your eyes open for yet another sword artifact. Once you get past all this, we go into a really long scrolling stage. At the end, we have a boss fight with the evil Haley. This whole fight is a bit crazy. He can shrink you, then he'll shrink and multiply himself. It's weird. If he shrinks you, don't fret. Just give this battle some time and hit him when possible. In the fourth stage, we're back in the Spark Robo. We're running and punching enemies. Nothing too exciting overall. At the end, we have another fight against Axel Gear. Do what you did at the beginning of the game to defeat him yet again. Now on to stage 5. Now stage 5 is the longest in the game. Things start getting really ridiculous here. The first section has us breaking into this castle. There's traps everywhere. Inside there's an annoying conveyor belt with this game's version of Castlevania's floating Medusa heads. There's also this section here where you have to avoid this one-hit kill laser. Fuck! At one point we'll find our 5th key to the seal. There's also a bunch of mini-boss fights with robots. Let's see here. There's one here, another here, and yet another here. We'll continue, and guess what? More robot fights. Robots, robots, robots. The final boss of this level? You guessed it, robots. These guys aren't too hard to fight, but man, it takes a while to kill them. Just keep attacking them with your, well, not to compare Sparkster to Sonic again, but hit them with your spin dash attack. Once you defeat the final robot, it'll kneel down and place the sword in the ground. It's another sword artifact! Grab it before the robot crashes down again, and we'll go to the next stage. Alright, this is it. This is the final stage. Let's do this. Let's save the world of Elhorn! We drop down and we see Princess Cherry, but we can't save her yet because that ass clown Axel Gear is trying to stop us. Battle time. The fight can be a bit tricky, but when Axel is in the air, try and rocket strike him. Hit him enough times and we'll defeat him. The little bitch runs off, but he drops his sword, which happens to be the last key to the seal that we need. And now that we collected all 7 Chaos Emeralds, keys to the seal, we can turn it to Super Sonic, Super Sparkster. To be serious though, this is pretty awesome. But before we get the chance to even do anything as Gold Sparkster, we end up flying over to this area here, and hey, there's Princess Cherry! So this is King Godal, and he's some kind of evil reptilian magician. He'll have a few different types of attacks, like hovering around the screen while shooting down lightning bolts or causing little meteors to shoot down. Most of his attacks can be avoided by just blasting off screen. Once he stops his attacks, that's our opportunity to hit him with our own. If you're Gold Sparkster, your attacks are stronger, and your rocket pack charges up a hell of a lot quicker. So let's use this to our advantage. So in his Godzilla form, Godal will shoot laser beams at you. Pay attention to the patterns, don't rush in, and attack that red jewel on his head. This fight will go on for a while, but keep at it. Haha! Take that, Godal! We saved the day! Princess Cherry is saved. We blast off, totally not like Supersonic, and we return the legendary sword. For whatever reason. The end! So, what an adventure! We fought evil, we collected legendary artifacts, we saved the world! But, all in all, how was this game? Well, being absolutely honest, it's good. This is an awesome adventure with a lot of fun moments. This sequel is a lot easier than the first game, but by no means is this game a cakewalk. As I previously mentioned, the slot machine mechanic saved my butt quite a few times. I like the new sword power-up. Even though it's really easy to get hit and lose it quickly, I still found it pretty cool. Being able to jet off in the air multiple times within one jump is pretty awesome too. I also really like the idea of Gold Sparkster, but I am pretty let down that you only got to use him once, and that was in the final battle. After collecting all those artifacts and after beating the game, I would have at least liked to restart the game with the gold armor so I can play around with it a bit more. Other than that though, my only real gripe with this game is the fact that there's no flying levels. That should be considered blasphemy for this series, right? Some of these stages run a bit long. I wouldn't have minded some of those getting shorted if that meant we could have received a flying stage or two. Flying is Sparkster's whole gimmick. But yeah, this game is pretty good. I like the first Rocket Knight Adventures a bit more, but Rocket Knight Adventures 2 is still worth checking out. In my opinion, it's a solid B+ title. I suppose it's worth noting that if you're interested in checking out any of the classic Rocket Knight Adventures games, at this moment Limited Run Games is offering a Rocket Knight Adventures collection titled Rocket Knight Adventures Resparked. That's pretty cool, but if your experience with Limited Run Games is anything like the one I've had in the past, if you order this game now, you might get your copy before Christmas. But those are just my opinions. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of Sparkster Rocket Knight Adventures 2? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, yada 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 yada. I hope you guys enjoy. Stay tuned for more videos in the future. And like always, I thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all on the next one.